Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to continue working on this. Currently I just have my walls. I'm going to add another light in here just so that I'll have it already kind of set in there for when I cut out my windows. Okay, so if you remember from the last video, we worked in solo mode, and that's a good way to kind of build a window. But first I have to know how large, or how many windows I want to add here. And so what I'm going to do is add a cube first and kind of place it into place of where my window might go. So I do want a house with a lot of windows because I like a lot of windows. So I'm going to try to kind of see how big I want to do that. And remember that this has to be wider than both the boxes here. So this is the exterior, this is the interior, the dotted line. I do want that to be wide enough to cut through, and eventually this is going to be just a cutout, so that's going to be a negative. For this to work, I will have to ungroup it and then group it back together. But right now what I'm doing is I'm taking measurements of what my window is going to be. I can always make the window larger when I model it. That's a good size. So what I'll do is I'll duplicate this. First I'll change that to a negative, and I'll duplicate this. Now remember, this is going to stay in place, so I'll do it Control D, leaving that in the place that it is. Then I'm going to go down here to the very bottom and hit Solo Selection Off. Okay. So next, I'm in solo mode, so I'm going to go to the top view, and I'm going to zoom in by doing a Control plus into this area here. Now this isn't the cutout, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I can make this a little bit thinner, but in that same general area I'm going to create a window. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to Control duplicate this, and I'll make that smaller and thinner. Now remember, I want this to kind of be a cutout for my window here, so I'm going to have like a little window frame built, and it could be a 2-panel thing, but see, since I'm there, I'm gonna go ahead and work from the top view. And since I kind of want to leave it into place, I should have made the window a little bit closer to me here, but working from the top, I'm gonna Control duplicate that and then move that over. Now those are going to be negatives, so I've left them that way. Eventually the outside is going to become a positive, but right now I'm just selecting the 2 cutouts. I'm going to duplicate those, Control D, and then I'm going to move those down a little bit. Okay, looks like that's going to work. So what I'll do is I'll convert this to a positive. I'll select them all there and group it, and there's my window. So that you could see it better, I'll just go ahead and there's the little cutouts to my window. Now one thing that I didn't mention is that or I did mention it, if you have a neutral in here, so say I wanted to put a material of glass in there, let's ungroup that, and I'll duplicate the positive of this, which is the frame, and then I'll make that a little bit thinner. And now remember that I mentioned if it's neutral, nothing will cut through it. So I want to create the illusion of glass in here. So I've copied that frame, And what I'll do is I'll add a material right away to that of glass. And it could be clear glass. And then I'll change that to a neutral. Really important that you change it to neutral, otherwise you won't be able to see the glass. I'll go ahead and group that now. And if I render it, you'll see that now there's a glass reflection in there. Okay. Now I haven't put a color to the frame yet, and I could do that now. So sometimes it's easier to do it as you go. Other people prefer not to, but then you have to deal with ungrouping it and adding the material. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm just going to grab the frame. Now remember, what I could do if I just add a name to the actual frame only, or a color, then I can select the frames and change the color if I don't like it. So that's the important thing about giving this a family color. That way I can select that quickly. As long as it says family 11 or any family name, you know that you haven't used that color yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add maybe a blue color to my window frames. So this is what I'm going to name it, is window frames. And again, that way I can go back in and change the color scheme if I don't like it. Right now I'm going to go ahead and group it. I'm going to go back into my model or out of solo mode. Now what I need to do out here for you to see that window is, again, you know, kind of zoom out here a little bit. I'll do a control minus sign, and I'll ungroup this because now I have to get that cutout or select the cutout. I'll be careful to not grab my window, and actually if I just hold down shift and unclick what I don't need, so I need the cutout, I need the outer and inner, and right now I'll leave that out. I'll group that out. So again, I've picked up that cutout, and now you can see that my window is showing in that house. Alright, so now that I've done that cutout, what I could do is ungroup this again, and I'll select just the cutout, and again that's just the cutout, not the window. And what I'll do is I'll duplicate, actually I'm going to select the window and the cutout, and I'll duplicate that so it is selecting both, and I'm going to move that over, so now I have another window. Then I'm going to duplicate that, and I'm going to move that back a little bit, kind of position it into where it's going to be big enough to cut through all of those. So I'll duplicate it a few more times, and once I have that, I can actually pick up both now, duplicate that, and just install them everywhere. So I can move those to the back and have them installed in the back there. And that way we'll have more light shining through. I'll duplicate those and move those over to the back of the house as well. And now I've got to be careful to just pick up the cutouts and the walls. And I'll show you what happens if I do accidentally pick up all of these elements here and I group it. It does work. So you can do them separately as well. Sometimes if it doesn't work all together as group, because I did have the window as a group and the cutout as a separate object, then it does cut through. And so that's how you would install windows on your building. I'll zoom out a little bit so you can kind of start seeing what's happening here with the building. I need to make that a little bit wider. I also need a door. So actually the door would be done the same way. You just make the maybe stretch that out, and I'll show you in the next video how you can kind of create that.